Amsterdam, 1672. A Dutch merchant ship unloads its cargo at dawn, but hidden beneath the sugar barrels is something worth more than gold, a stolen recipe that will shatter Spain's century-long monopoly on drinkable chocolate. To understand how we got here, we need to go back 90 years, to a confession booth in Seville, where a Jesuit monk is about to hear the secret that the Spanish crown has killed to protect. The year is 1581. Chocolate has been in Spain for 40 years, brought back by Cortés from the Aztec Empire. But there's a problem. It tastes absolutely terrible. The Aztecs drank it bitter, mixed with chili peppers and, according to conquistador accounts, ceremonial blood. The Spanish tried adding sugar, but it still tasted, in one monk's words, like liquid chalk scraped from a stable floor. Then someone discovered the secret. Roast the cacao beans at exactly the right temperature, and the bitterness transforms into something divine. But who discovered it? And why did they need to hide it in a confession booth? Because this wasn't just a recipe. This was geopolitical power. Whoever controlled drinkable chocolate controlled the most addictive luxury commodity since silk. Father Alonso worked in the Royal Confectionery in Madrid. For 3 years he experimented with roasting temperatures, failing hundreds of times. And when he finally succeeded, he realized he'd created something dangerous. In his journal, later seized by the Inquisition, he wrote, "I have made the drink of gods palatable to Christians. May God forgive me, for the king will make this knowledge worth more than a man's soul." He was right to be afraid. Within months, 3 other confectioners working on the same problem disappeared. One was found in the river, the other 2 were never found at all. Father Alonso did the only thing he could think of. He went to confession. And the priest on the other side of that screen? He was the head of the Jesuit intelligence network in Spain. What happened next would turn chocolate from an undrinkable curiosity into the secret weapon of the Catholic Church, and eventually the cause of a trade war that would reshape Europe. But first, the Jesuits needed to smuggle the formula out of Spain, past the Inquisition, and into the Vatican. Their method? Encoded recipe instructions hidden inside Latin prayer books. The code was brilliant. Bible verses where certain letters were marked with tiny pinpricks. To anyone else, just a monk's devotional text. But to trained Jesuit eyes, a complete guide to the roasting process. For 90 years, this secret passed through confession booths across Catholic Europe. Hot chocolate became the drink of monasteries, convents, and Vatican inner circles, perfected, transcendent, and absolutely forbidden to outsiders. Until 1671, when a disillusioned Franciscan friar named Brother Tomas walked into a tavern in Barcelona with a copied prayer book and a price, 8,000 guilders. The buyer? A Dutch pirate working for the East India Company. 1666. A single cup of chocolate costs more than a Spanish soldier's monthly wages. Kings hoard it, popes bless it, and 3 European empires are about to go to war over a secret monks died to protect. This isn't about candy. It's about the hidden intelligence network that turned a bitter Aztec war drink into the currency that toppled dynasties. When Cortés first brought cacao to Spain in 1528, it was undrinkable, a muddy, chalky sludge mixed with chili peppers that made courtiers gag. For 70 years, cacao sat in Spanish warehouses, worthless, until a Jesuit monk in Guatemala discovered something the Aztecs never shared. The roasting temperature that changed everything. The exact degree that transformed toxic bitterness into liquid gold. And the Jesuits encoded it in Latin prayer books, disguised as communion instructions. By 1600, chocolate had become Spain's secret weapon, a diplomatic tool more valuable than silver, traded in Vatican confessionals where no one else could hear. Here's what they understood. Control the drink that kings crave, and you control the kings. This is how a beverage rewired global power. The Jesuits built an intelligence network across 3 continents, using chocolate recipes as code, each monastery a node, each recipe a cipher only they could read. When a Spanish bishop visited Rome, he carried more than prayers. Hidden in his vestments, the latest cacao intelligence from New Spain's plantations. Then in 1640, everything shattered. A disillusioned Augustinian friar named Brother Tomas walked into an Amsterdam tavern with a piece of paper worth more than gold. The complete formula: roasting temperature, 140 degrees Celsius. Grinding method, the secret ratio of sugar that made it irresistible. He sold it to Dutch pirates for 8,000 guilders. Within a year, Dutch chocolate flooded European markets at half the Spanish price. The Spanish chocolate monopoly collapsed. A 90-year trade war began. But here's the twist that changed everything. The Dutch added more sugar. The French added vanilla. Each nation weaponized the recipe differently. Chocolate evolved from masculine war drink to refined feminine luxury. From Aztec ritual involving human blood to the beverage that defined European aristocratic femininity. By 1700, the Catholic Church faced a crisis. Nuns were consuming so much chocolate during fasts, they needed papal ruling. Did drinking chocolate break the fast? Pope Pius V ruled, liquidum non frangit jejunum. Liquid does not break the fast. Convents exploded with chocolate consumption. Some nuns drank 12 cups daily. Then the backlash. In 1681, the Bishop of Chiapas prohibited chocolate in church. Women ignored him. He was found dead weeks later, poisoned, they said, with chocolate. This is why chocolate matters. It's the first global commodity where the recipe itself became military intelligence, where flavor was encrypted, where monks became spies. The formula that Brother Tomas sold didn't just break a monopoly. It shattered the idea that knowledge could be contained by empires and prayer books. Within a century, chocolate houses in London became hotbeds of revolution. The American founders plotted independence over cups of chocolate. The drink rewired who held power. From Aztec emperors' ritual drink to the beverage that fueled Enlightenment thinking, all because monks couldn't keep a secret, and pirates understood what secrets were worth. The 8,000 guilders Brother Tomas received, in today's money, roughly $2.3 million, the most expensive recipe leak in history, and it changed everything we drink today. 1519. Hernán Cortés watches Aztec warriors gulp a frothy brown liquid before battle. They call it chocolatl. He tastes it once and immediately spits it out, bitter, chalky, mixed with chili peppers and ceremonial blood. The conquistadors conquer an empire, but they can't conquer the drink. Ship after ship returns to Spain carrying cacao beans worth a fortune that nobody wants to consume. For 30 years, cacao sits in Spanish warehouses, rotting. The most valuable commodity from the New World tastes like liquid dirt. The Spanish crown is furious. They've conquered gold that can't be spent. Enter the Jesuits. These scholarly monks are the only Europeans actually living among indigenous peoples, learning their languages, documenting their secrets. And they notice something the soldiers missed. The Aztecs don't just mix cacao with water. There's a process: roasting, grinding, specific temperatures. The warriors who drank it weren't consuming it raw. But which temperature? What technique? The Aztecs aren't telling. Here's where the espionage begins, because whoever cracks the formula controls the most addictive substance Europe has never tasted. Brother Geronimo de Aguilar spends 7 years in a Maya village, pretending to study theology. He's actually studying roasting temperatures. Every night, he encodes his observations in fake Latin prayers. His breakthrough comes from watching Maya women prepare cacao for nobility, not warriors. They roast at lower heat, longer duration, 160 degrees, not 200. The bitterness transforms into something else entirely. 1585, the first correctly prepared chocolate arrives in Madrid. Sweetened with cane sugar from another conquered land, it's served to King Philip II. He drinks it, then orders more, then bans all exports. Within months, chocolate becomes Spain's most protected state secret. More guarded than silver rotes, more valuable than gold mines. The Jesuit formula is locked in Vatican vaults, shared only through confessional whispers. But the Jesuits make one fatal mistake. They teach the recipe to every monastery in their network. Hundreds of monks now know the secret, and monks, it turns out, can be bought. For 90 years, Spain maintains its monopoly through prayer books and coded Latin. Protestant nations drink bitter, chalky failures while Catholic Europe sips perfection, until one friar gets greedy. The Jesuits had a problem. They'd perfected chocolate in their Mexican missions by 1590, but Madrid's spies watched every ship, every letter, every conversation. Brother Tomás de Cardona realized the solution while hearing confessions in Veracruz. The confessional booth was the one place even the king's men couldn't follow. He developed a system. Traveling Jesuits would confess their chocolate sins in coded language. "Forgive me, Father, for I roasted the beans at the heat of 40 aves," meant exactly 340 degrees. Within months, chocolate intelligence flowed from Mexico City to Seville to Rome. Every confession booth became a dead drop, every priest an unwitting courier. The beauty was its invisibility. Spanish authorities heard only mumbled prayers and Catholic guilt, never suspecting those whispered sins carried the formula worth more than Aztec gold. But the Jesuits needed more than verbal codes. They needed a permanent, portable record that could survive the 3-month Atlantic crossing without arousing suspicion. Enter the illuminated prayer book. Jesuits were expected to carry them. Guards never looked twice. The perfect hiding place was hiding in plain sight. Brother Cardona's stroke of genius: embed the roasting temperatures in fake scripture verses. Psalm 340 didn't exist, but no guard knew the Bible that well. The margins held botanical drawings of native flowers that were actually cacao pod cross-sections, showing fermentation stages down to the day. By 1595, 20 prayer books carried the complete chocolate formula across 6 continents. The Vatican Library held the master copy, filed under missionary devotionals. Nobody looked. This was espionage at the speed of faith, and for 30 years it worked flawlessly. Until a friar named Vicente walked into a Dutch tavern in Curaçao with a very specific prayer book. In 1638, a Jesuit monk named Father Sebastian copied psalms into a worn leather prayer book, but hidden within the Latin verses were numbers that would change chocolate forever. Every third letter in specific verses spelled out temperatures. Every 5th word contained timing sequences. The monks had turned the Bible itself into an encryption device. The secret they were hiding? Roast cacao beans at exactly 142 degrees Celsius for 17 minutes. Any hotter, they carbonized. Any cooler, the compounds that made chocolate taste like muddy chalk remained. For 30 years, the Jesuits had experimented in hidden chambers beneath Spanish monasteries. Hundreds of failed batches, the floors stained brown with discarded attempts. They called it the temperature of grace. Too precise to be coincidence, too valuable to write down plainly. If other European powers learned this, Spain's monopoly would collapse overnight. The Vatican confessionals became dead drops. A monk in Madrid would confess sins that were actually roasting instructions. A cardinal in Rome would absolve him with coded refinements to the recipe. This wasn't just about a beverage. Chocolate had become Spain's second most valuable American import after silver. The encrypted prayer books were economic weapons disguised as devotion. But encryption is only as strong as the people who keep it. And in 1641, a Franciscan friar named Brother Mateo was about to meet someone willing to pay 8,000 guilders for a prayer book. Brother Thomas Garcia stood in the rain-soaked Amsterdam docks at midnight, February 1687. In his leather satchel, Spain's most guarded secret. The price, 8,000 guilders in gold. For 90 years, the Jesuits had kept the formula locked behind Vatican walls. The precise roasting temperature, the alkaline treatment, the secret that transformed bitter sludge into liquid gold. Thomas wasn't supposed to know. He was a scribe, a nobody who copied prayer books in the monastery basement. But scribes see everything. For 6 months, he decoded the recipes hidden between psalms, temperatures disguised as Bible verses, roasting times embedded in Gregorian chant notation. The Jesuits were brilliant, but they were careless. The Dutch pirates had been watching him for weeks. Captain Henrik van der Meer knew exactly what the friar possessed, and exactly what it was worth. This wasn't just about chocolate. This was about breaking Spain's monopoly on the most profitable luxury good in Europe. Whoever controlled the formula controlled the market. Thomas had his reasons for betrayal. The Jesuits had promised him a teaching position in Rome. Instead, they buried him in the archives, copying recipes he'd never taste, guarding secrets he'd never share in. The meeting lasted 4 minutes. Van der Meer counted the guilders. Thomas handed over the satchel. No words, no ceremony, just the quiet sound of Spain's empire beginning to crack. By dawn, the formula was on a ship bound for Amsterdam's chocolate houses. Within a week, Dutch chocolatiers were replicating the Spanish process. Within a month, the price of Spanish chocolate collapsed. The Spanish crown went ballistic. King Charles II dispatched assassins across Europe. Not for the pirates, they expected that. For Brother Thomas, the church wanted him alive. The crown wanted him silent. Thomas disappeared into the Dutch countryside with his fortune. Some say he bought a farm in Friesland. Others claim the Jesuits found him first. His body was never recovered. Neither were the guilders. But the damage was done. The secret was out. And the 90-year chocolate monopoly that had funded cathedrals, missions, and wars across 3 continents was finished. What Brother Thomas sold that night wasn't just a recipe. It was the end of Spain's chocolate empire and the beginning of chocolate for the masses. Sometimes betrayal changes the world. 1678. The convent of Santa Clara in Oaxaca. Nuns have just perfected something that will get them excommunicated. Sister Maria del Sacramento discovered that adding raw cane sugar and vanilla during the third stir created a drink so intoxicating, it blurred the line between prayer and pleasure. Within months, convents across New Spain were holding secret chocolate ceremonies. They called them hours of contemplation. The Vatican called them something else. The problem wasn't the drink. It was what happened during Mass. Nuns were sneaking chocolate to sustain them through dawn to dusk services, technically breaking their fast. Bishop Juan de Palafox called it liquid sin. But the real scandal? The chocolate was better than anything made by monks. And the monks knew it. Here's where it gets medieval. The Jesuits who'd guarded the chocolate secrets for decades suddenly faced competition from cloistered women who'd never left convent walls. The nuns had made one critical innovation the monks missed: grinding the cocoa with heated mortars. It released oils that made the drink creamy instead of chalky. By 1681, wealthy Spanish women were paying convents for their chocolate recipe. Some nuns were making more from chocolate than the church paid them in a year. That's when the hammer fell. The Council of Cardinals issued the decree of forbidden stimulants. Nuns could no longer prepare, consume, or profit from chocolate. The penalty? Removal from their order. Sister Maria was defiant. She sent a letter to Rome arguing that if wine could be Christ's blood, chocolate could be his comfort. She was transferred to a silent order in the Pyrenees. But you can't uninvent delicious. Within 5 years, the ban crumbled. Cardinals admitted what everyone knew: convent chocolate had become sacred to the morning ritual of every Spanish household. The compromise? Nuns could make chocolate for medicinal and hospitality purposes only, which conveniently meant anyone who visited or claimed a headache. The Jesuits never forgave them. For the next century, competing chocolate traditions divided the Catholic world: the bitter, austere monk version versus the sweet, perfected nun recipe. Today, every cup of hot chocolate carries this forgotten war. The sweetness you taste, that's Sister Maria's final victory over the men who tried to erase her recipe. For 90 years, the secret lived in confession booths and coded prayer books, the temperature that transformed chocolate from ritual poison to liquid heaven. The Jesuits had cracked it: 140 degrees Fahrenheit, low and slow. That's what the Aztecs never wrote down, what made the difference between medicine and mud. Brother Sebastian's betrayal in 1687 changed everything. 8,000 guilders bought the Dutch pirates more than a recipe. It bought them an empire. Within a decade, Amsterdam's chocolate houses outnumbered Madrid's. The Spanish monopoly crumbled like over-roasted cacao, one intercepted shipment at a time. But the real revolution wasn't in the roasting. It was what came after. The moment some forgotten confectioner added sugar and milk instead of chili and ceremonial blood. The drink that once fortified Aztec warriors for human sacrifice became the beverage that European mothers tucked their children into bed with. Same bean, different world. The Vatican finally approved it for fasting in 1662, but with conditions. Nuns were forbidden from drinking it after the incident at the convent of Santa Clara. 23 sisters had reported visions of excessive joy. The church decided chocolate was too close to ecstasy. For nuns, anyway. Today, we remember none of this when we tear open a candy bar. We've forgotten the spies, the codes, the pirates, the temperature that changed history. But every time you taste sweetness instead of bitterness, You're tasting the end result of a 90-year intelligence war fought in monasteries and on the high seas. The chocolate spy ring didn't just steal a recipe, they accidentally invented comfort itself. And that secret, it was never meant to leave the Vatican at all. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and check out other videos.